Okay, we're going to start with Chapter 3 now, Consciousness and the Two-Track Mind. This chapter is going to cover questions that were initially addressed by Wilhelm Wundt back in the late 1800s. And for a period of time during the 1900s, these topics were not really appropriate for psychologists to study because psychologists were focusing on behaviorism. But since about 1980, in particular, consciousness has really gotten a lot more time in research. We've really been looking at it a lot more heavily, and so there's been this blossoming of knowledge of how you are aware of your environment, how you process the information around you. So let's jump in. So what is consciousness? Okay, so we have this guy in the waterfall. Consciousness is our awareness of ourself and our environment. So you can imagine that this guy is aware of a lot of different sensations, thoughts that are coming in as a function of, laying on those mossy rocks with the waterfall cascading over him. Consciousness, part of it is how alert you are. Like, he's probably exquisitely awake, right? Because he's got water hitting him and his brain's like, survival. We are not going to fall asleep in this scenario, right? But alertness is one question in consciousness, because we vary in how alert we are from one moment to the next, and between people and things like that. Self-awareness is another aspect of consciousness. These are YouTube videos, two different ones, that show how we are able to measure self-awareness in babies and in other animals. If you want to go ahead and see those videos, all you have to do is view these PowerPoints that I've provided in the as a link. View the PowerPoint as a slideshow. Click on those links and it'll launch the YouTube video automatically for you. The first one shows a baby who they've, like an 18-month-old child, who they've put a little bit of lipstick on their forehead. And then the baby looks at himself in the mirror and realizes that is them, that's me in the mirror, and I've got something red on my forehead. And so once babies get self-awareness, they start to wipe off the lipstick on their own forehead rather than trying to touch the lipstick on the mirror, thinking that it's a different child who happens to have lipstick on their forehead. It shows that the child is aware that they are an independent being and that they are seeing their own reflection in the mirror. Animals, particularly chimpanzees, display this kind of self-awareness. Elephants also have this kind of self-awareness. So you can watch the videos and see what I'm talking about if you want to. They're very brief. Having free will is another aspect of consciousness. Being able to reflect on your behaviors, make decisions about what you want to do next, or reflect on the outcomes of the behaviors you have engaged in so that you can help to inform how you should behave in the future. All these things are part of having free will and being aware of yourself. And then, of course, all your mental content, thoughts, things that you imagine, all of those things are part of your consciousness. So consciousness covers a number of different topics, and we're going to talk about consciousness from a couple of different ways in this chapter. First thing I wanted to point out is that our chapter is called Consciousness and the Two-Track Mind. I kind of object to the word mind, I will just point out, because it gets you into sort of this philosophical conundrum, trying to figure out what is your mind. Is it something separate from your brain? Is it an outcome of your brain? If it's something separate from your brain, what's controlling it? It gets you into this whole philosophical thing that, as a hardcore scientist, I really don't like to get into. So I usually sort of don't use the word mind. But our textbook's using the word, so we need to acknowledge that it's a valid word for some psychologists. What we're talking about with the two-track mind or the dual-track mind is that you have certain things that you might be consciously aware of, and some things that you may not be consciously aware of, but that is impacting you nonetheless. That's unconscious activity. Things that you can do without being aware of those things, or things that you can that can influence you and you don't even know that they're there, let alone that they're influencing you. Let's give you some examples. Conscious mind is oftentimes referred to as the high track because it's the thing that we know for sure your cortex is taking care of. Consciousness, or the high track, refers to those deliberate actions that we're aware of, that we know we're doing, problem solving, naming an object. Those are things that you do with conscious awareness. The unconscious track, or the low track, which might be being governed by structures in your limbic system and maybe even the cerebellum, which is in your brainstem, these are automatic actions that you can do without any awareness. Your cerebellum, for example, takes care of walking, orchestrates the movements. Of course, you have your motor strip in your cortex that sends the message out to your muscles so that you can move. But your cerebellum is what manages balance and integrates the movements so that you can, without having to think about one step, one step, one step, you can just move, right? It turns out your cerebellum is also in charge of acquiring phobias. So actually I happen to give you two examples that are cerebellum activities. We also, well, I guess to a certain extent we could say that the limbic system is in charge of acquiring phobias because of the role of the amygdala, right? That's part of the limbic system and it's in charge of fears. So in short, the unconscious or low track is going to be the kinds of things that are processed by your limbic system or brainstem. The high track is generally going to be the things that are being processed by your cerebral cortex. So here we have a bird and your conscious awareness that that's a bird. That's the conscious side, you labeling that thing as a bird. The unconscious, or the low track, is you noticing a flash of color or some movement or the general form or the distance, the depth that it is away from you. All those factors sort of collapse together and you recognize a bird-shaped form that's flying and that it has a color pattern of a bird that you're familiar with and that it seems to be farther away from you than an insect, right? So it must be bigger than an insect. And all that stuff comes together unconsciously, and then consciously you're aware it's a bird. So a lot of the things that we do to become aware of things, to become conscious of things, are done unconsciously, without any thought. Motion oftentimes attracts our attention so that we can start the process of identifying information. So a lot of things that we do, we don't know we're doing it. That's the basic point here. Okay, so what consequences are there for us that we have this dual track mind, that some stuff is processed consciously and some stuff is processed unconsciously? Well, for one thing, you can decide of all the stuff that's impinging on you at any given moment, things that you're hearing, things that you're seeing, things that you're smelling, thoughts that you're having inside your own head, noises, I might have already said hearing. Anyway, you can decide what to place your attention on. That's called selective attention. You decide. It goes back to that issue of free will, right, that I mentioned on the first slide. We decide what is important and we should focus on, and what is irrelevant and we can ignore. That's selective attention. We also have selective inattention. So because we've made this decision that stuff is important, something is important enough that we're going to try and put our entire attention onto it, it can cause us to not notice some pretty dramatic things. They don't even cross our level of consciousness at all. Okay, I'm going to try and show these two videos because the first two really don't need sound. So if the sound doesn't pick up, it won't kill the demo. The third one you need to hear. So I'm going to leave it to you to launch it because I'm not sure if this screen capture software is going to pick up. I don't think it's going to pick up sound. So, but the inattentional blindness, I'll talk and possibly be talking. Maybe I'll mute it and then I can tell you what's going on, and then it won't interfere. Okay, so let me tell it to mute. There we go. All right, so what you're going to do in this exercise, you'll notice there's 3 people wearing black t-shirts and 3 people wearing white t-shirts. The people wearing black t-shirts are going to play a game with one basketball, and the people with the white t-shirts are going to be playing the same game but with a different basketball. So they're going to be moving in amongst each other and passing the balls. what I want you to do is focus in just on the people wearing the white t-shirts and count how many times the people wearing white pass the basketball. So I'm asking you to deliberately exclude the people in the black t-shirts and selectively attend to the people in the white t-shirts and count how many times they pass the ball. Okay, here we go. Okay, so if you counted correctly, yay! But did you see the gorilla? Now that you're looking for a gorilla, it's so obvious. For most people, for about 2/3 of people who have never seen this video before, they won't notice the gorilla walking through. They're so busy selectively attending to the people in the white t-shirts that they've been instructed to pay attention to that they literally block out anything that's black because they know that there's one team wearing black t-shirts and one team that's wearing white t-shirts, and they've been instructed to focus on the team with the white t-shirts. So they selectively attend to the white t-shirts and develop inattentional blindness for the people in black t-shirts and therefore also the black garbed gorilla. Now, a lot of times people in my classes will go, "Oh, I saw it. I saw the gorilla. You didn't trick me." It wasn't really a trick. It was a demonstration of what our brain does to enable itself to correctly process the information that it's been assigned to process. If you notice the gorilla, for most people who've noticed the gorilla, they do not have the correct number of passes for the white t-shirted players. Your brain really can't handle a shift of attention like that. You've been assigned to look at the people in the white t-shirt. That's going to pull your attention away if you notice the gorilla. So it's actually in your best interest to be able to selectively attend. If you've watched a TV show called Our Bleeped Up Brain, I think it's on the Science Channel or something like that, they call it Our Bleeped Up Brain, which is already setting us up for thinking that our brain doesn't function correctly. Our brain is functioning correctly. We are designed to be able to put our attention on what we choose to put our attention on. And if we are distracted by irrelevant information, it could pull us away from what we're supposed to be doing. Anyone who is listening to me who has had a diagnosis of ADD, attention deficit disorder, knows what I'm talking about. Because when you want to put your attention on one thing and your attention gets pulled by something else, it's very difficult to function efficiently. It's like you aren't in control, and it can be really frustrating, and it's not how most people want to work. So it's not, what I just showed you was not intended to be a trick. It was intended to be a demonstration of how effectively our brain works at focusing on what it chooses to focus on. Okay, now I'm going to show you another example of selective inattention from the same researchers, and again, it doesn't matter that you can't hear them because they have the little instructions. Okay, so watch this brief silent movie, then we'll have some questions. You saw a person get up from a desk to answer a phone, right? Did you notice anything change during the video? The video had two different actors wearing different clothing. So now let's watch it again. See, it's a different guy wearing beige. The first guy had blue. Most people don't notice the change. It's a phenomenon known as change blindness. Our jobs when we're you didn't know where that video was going. I just showed you one with a gorilla in it. You don't know what's going to happen. Maybe a gorilla's coming through, right? Maybe I'm setting you up for confusion again. And so your brain gets ready. It's like, what's going on? So all your brain really concluded was that it's a blonde man, right? That's all you really saw was blonde man. Who cares? Then when you're asked, did you see anything change? It was a different guy wearing different clothes. You're like, what? And then they show it again, and you're like, oh, wait, it is two different guys. But it really wasn't relevant. Your brain was prepped and waiting for whatever was going to be important. And nothing important happened in that video, right? It turned out the important thing was that the actors changed. So change blindness is another example of how when you choose to pay attention to something, in this case, I am choosing to keep my mind open. I don't know what surprising thing might happen in this video. You may miss something important like the fact that the actors changed. The last example I have on this list is choice blindness, and I'm not going to play it because it has narration that would make the video very uninterpretable if you can't hear it, in fact. So if you want to watch it, just go ahead and click on the link from the PowerPoint slideshow. The idea in choice blindness is that sometimes when you're put into a forced choice scenario and you have to pick between two things, you will make a choice even when the two choices aren't valid. In the video they show, I won't ruin the video for you. In the video they show a choice and make you choose. In real life, oftentimes we have two options and we feel like we have to pick one, and so we ignore the fact that they really aren't different from each other. We pick and we try and justify our selection when in fact there's nothing rational about the decision that we've made. We aren't paying attention to the fact that really the two aren't different, or that these aren't the same two things we started with, or whatever. We don't really pay that close of attention. We've been given a choice, we make a choice. I just really want to wrap up this segment by mentioning again, these are adaptive strategies. These are strategies that have helped our species over the course of, however long we've existed, to be able to make quick decisions, decide what to focus on, ignore stuff that in our expectation is going to be irrelevant, so we can put our attention where we want to. So it's a benefit. It's not a deficit. It's not our bleeped up brain, as that show calls it. It's our brain functioning optimally. It's kind of surprising some of the stuff we miss when we find out that we overlooked it or that we didn't notice it, but it's how our brain functions most optimally. Okay, let's go ahead and stop here. I will come back and begin with sleep and dreams.